everyone. Pastor Jonathan here with this week's edition of the Weekend Wrap-Up. And I'm here with Pastor Will, and we're going to take time to reflect on Sunday's message from Pastor Chris. And we want you to engage with us. And so we have a question for you today to start off with. And that question is, how old were you when you first heard the message of the cross and became a follower of Christ? When you put your faith in what Christ did for you, how old were you? And I have an answer to that question. I'm going to save it to the end, and I'm anxious to hear Pastor Will's question, and we would love to hear from you. So just comment at the bottom of the video you see there, and let us know how old you were. And so we're thinking about Sunday's message from Pastor Chris, and it was all about the crucifixion and the passage from Luke. And so as we think back to his talking about the cross and what it means for those who believe, what were some things that maybe stood out to you?
So I think just the biggest thing that stood out for me, and it always kind of comes down when you come to the crucifixion, is the fact that Jesus died in my place. It's so easy to think, well, Jesus died for them or Jesus died for humanity as a whole. But when you really kind of take it and make it personal, and you realize that every single one of my sins that I have committed, every single one of my sins that I am currently committing, because I still struggle, I'm human, and every sin that I will commit that Jesus bore on the cross for me. And so I think for me, it's just making it personal and realizing that he had to do this for me. And he did it for you and for you.
And I think about that too, and it moves it from the general sense that he died for everyone. John 3:16 makes that very clear. But there was a time in my life where I understood that for me personally, he died for me, and it required a response on my part that had nothing to do with my church attendance or nothing to do with my own achievement or my own merits. And I had to make a decision. It's not like it was automatic, that the grace that was given to me or offered to me would be applied to me automatically. And so that's a very important point. I think sometimes it's missed when people hear the gospel, that they assume, well, they start comparing themselves maybe to someone else, as opposed to the standard that's laid out in the Bible about perfection. And yes, on Sunday, Pastor Chris and in Luke, they make it very abundantly clear that Jesus had not done anything wrong. He had never sinned. He was perfect, which is the requirement for being holy and acceptable before God. And I think understanding that that's not something I can attain on my own. And Pastor Chris made the reference to a scale or a balance, and how, for all of us, sometimes I've talked to people who I know think that God's just going to somehow weigh my good deeds versus my bad deeds. And as long as I do better on the good side and I'm not, then it's going to turn out in my favor. And the problem with that is, according to Scripture, we're all guilty. And we don't have to be guilty of everything in the sense that we've committed every sin that could be possibly committed. It only takes being guilty once. And then all of a sudden, the weight of the balance is not in your favor, and you can't do anything to set it right. Only what Christ did on the cross can make it right and make us holy. So what else?
For that, we should be very thankful. Well, I think we should also just have a realization, and this is taking a little bit of creative license, but, Jesus speaks in this passage, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And there are millions of people out there. There are family members, there are friends, there are neighbors who don't know about Jesus. They're just kind of going about living their lives. And I think, again, it's you start personally, but then you realize if it's important for me, if it's important for us, then it's important for them too.
Right. And here's what I would say too. I sometimes am guilty of not, I assume that people know or they don't want to know. And so I have to be careful not to assume where somebody's at in their own relationship with God, or do they know, or do they understand? And so I need to show more boldness in my interactions with people and being willing to explore the personal side of the gospel message, not just the general side, but really get down to it. Have you ever taken this personally? Have you ever responded personally to the offer of grace and forgiveness that Jesus brings? And so my desire is to live more boldly and to be more direct in my conversations, not pushy, but just direct. And so that's something I really, really need to work on personally.
And I would say if you're watching this video and you've never personally made that decision to follow Jesus Christ, we would love to chat with you or talk with you about that. So send us a direct message, send us an email, call us at the church phone. We'd love to just talk with you about that.
Right. So to answer the question that we started out with today, for me, I heard the message of the gospel a lot of times as a kid, but when I was 10 years old was when I really understood that this was something I needed to respond to personally myself, not because I came to church with my parents or any of those kinds of things, but because God had done a work and grace in me, and I wanted to accept it and receive it. And I've been following Christ. If you do the math, I was 10 years old. That's, let's see, I just turned 57, so that's 47 years of trying to follow Christ and living my life as someone who, as a believer in what Christ did for me, I could live and walk with Him in that way.
And I would say you don't look a day over 55.
Yeah, so. Thank you. You're probably expecting me to buy you lunch now. It's not going to happen.
Just kidding. And I was 11 years old when I came to that choice for Christ.
Yeah.
So.
Never regretted it. And so we encourage you. We look forward to meeting with you again next week and talking about Pastor Chris's message from Sunday. Hope you'll join us, and we'll love to see you here on Sundays at 8, 9:30, or 11. Join us live. Have a great day.
See ya.